The first time that I heard that bass line from Come On Let's Go by Tyler, the Creator, it was like an instant woo! And I don't hand those out too easily, you know. When we've got the creative juices flowing, either on our own or like with a group of people, it's really important that we have good sounds ready to go at our fingertips. And this is an awesome bass sound to have at the ready. Let me show you how to make it. So what are we going to use to make the sound today? I'm going to be using Arturia's Mini Moog emulation, but actually there's a lot of free ones out there if you don't have this one. So I'm going to go up to the top left here and click New Preset so we can set all the parameters to their default values. So the first thing we're going to tackle here are the oscillators. Now for oscillator 1, I want you to bring the range or the octave down from 8 to 32 here. So it sounds like this. Then just head over to this next knob to the right where we can change the waveform. We're going to be changing it from its default sawtooth all the way to the right so we can get a narrow rectangular. I really like using this waveform to start most sounds with the Mini Moog with, so it's nice that this sound also incorporates that from what my ears could tell. Now the next thing we need to tackle here is oscillator 2, and I want you to bring it down, bring the range down from 8 to 32 once again so we can get it in the same octave range as oscillator 1. But this time we're going to keep the waveform as a sawtooth instead of a narrow rectangular. Now in order for us to hear it, we need to move this volume knob all the way up so we can get it to match oscillator 1. The other thing that we're going to do to oscillator 2 is we're going to detune it a little bit because, you know, to my ears, when I listen to this original bass patch, I hear some detuning and some of that beating sound when two oscillators are slightly out of tune playing the same note. So in order for us to do that, I'm just going to hold Control and I'm going to drag the fine tuning down significantly. I'm talking, let's do about 18%. So here's what it sounds like now. The next step in our order of operations, if you will, is to come down to this section called loudness contour where we can start to shape the envelope a little bit. And all I'm looking to do here is just slow down the attack a hair to about 8 milliseconds so we can get rid of some of the clickiness at the beginning of every single note. And I'm just going to leave the decay very quick and the sustain all the way up at 10 at maximum level because it's a sustaining bass sound, and a lot of the magic of the sound is going to come from what we do next, which is the filtering. Okay, so here's kind of how it's sounding right now. It's pretty dirty right now, it's pretty dirty. At this point when I'm designing a sound, I like to do something a little bit kind of silly, and that's to sound out the original sound with my mouth so that I know and understand what the filter is supposed to be doing, right? So in our case, the original kind of sounds like a wow, wow, which means that we want the filter to open and close quickly, okay? So that gives us an indication of what we need to do next. Now, what I want you to do in the Mini Moog is to flip on this switch called filter modulation. And the first thing we're going to do is mess with the cutoff frequency, and this is where the filter envelope is going to end up eventually, right? If I play this, it's opening and closing very quickly at the moment and ending up back at 100 Hertz, which is kind of the area that I want it to be in. Next thing we're going to mess with here is the filter emphasis, which is just like the resonance of the filter at the cutoff frequency. And I like to think of it as how much of an influence you want the filter envelope to have over the final sound. And in our case, it's a significant one. So we're going to turn this up. Now we're getting a little closer here. Next thing is the amount of contour, so kind of like the depth or how far you want the filter envelope to sweep across the frequency spectrum. Okay, so if I turn it all the way down here, not really doing anything. 10's all the way up, and I'm just gonna find a nice happy medium here. Cool. One thing I want you to make sure is on is this keyboard control switch. I think it's on by default, but it's important to have on because it allows you to make the sound a little bit more natural by allowing the filter envelope to open up more at higher notes and less at lower notes. It really just adds a nice natural element to our sound design here. Now the next thing we're going to look at is this filter envelope. Now remember, we need it to go wow. So we need it to have a slower attack, and then we need to bring it back down quickly, right? And right now the attack time is much too fast. So let's slow that down. Next, I'm going to work on this decay here and slow that down a little bit. Now it's time for us to shape the sound in a more detailed way so that it's closer to the original record. Now, the interesting part about the original sound is that it's really focused in this low mid range of like 200 to 400 hertz. And it's got these tight high pass and tight low pass filters going. So we're gonna add those right now with some EQ and see if we can get it sounding closer to the original here. And since the original record is so focused there, I'm actually going to add a little, maybe not so little bump here, around 200 hertz. So now let's add some compression, and I'm going to make this significant. I'm going to change the ratio to 3 and really start to get some nice gain reduction here. Slow the attack down here. And in the original, it doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of dynamics happening either. So I'm going to take this a step further and add a glue compressor so we can do some parallel compression here. Get that release a lot faster until we get something kind of ridiculous here, 10 decibels of gain reduction. And then I'm just going to pull the dry wet down a little. And I'll tell you too, having analyzed the original, the bass sound, including all the higher harmonics, is all in the center. And so I want to make sure that my sound is also all in the center by just making it mono here with utility. And I'm going to apply a little bit of gain so we can get it back to the level before the processing. And we're just about there. Now, after you add compression, sometimes you can get these little peaks and these little resonances that you'll notice. And I'm going to get rid of a couple of those pesky ones to my ears. But this is completely optional. If you want this sound to have a little bit more clarity, one little tip I have for you is to watch what's going on around 160 hertz. Just clean it up a little bit. You can even boost there if you fancy it. And there we go. This is kind of our sound. Now, this is a really good point where you should A, save the preset, but B, you can start, use this as a foundation and then start adding effects and making it a little bit more unique, and you can get some other really cool sounds out of it that you can use in future projects as well. So what kind of sounds have you guys been loving? What kind of bass sounds have you been wooing about? Let me know down in the comments below and maybe we can make it together. All right, we'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.